Imagine you are holding a $50 million subcontract on the biggest bridge rebuild in the country.
Right. A massive generational job.
Exactly. Your crews are scheduled, your materials are staged, your cash flow is locked in, and overnight, literally overnight, the prime contractor gets entirely wiped off the board.
Just completely severed.
The contract is gone. And that is exactly what just happened with Kiewit on the Baltimore Key Bridge.
Yeah, that is a massive shockwave.
And at the same time, Gateway just awarded a massive $1.29 billion tunnel boring contract for the Hudson.
Oh, and FlatironDragados just broke ground on a $4.6 billion P3 highway.
Right. Throw in the largest construction wage theft recovery in Minnesota's history.
Right.
And a breaking story about the firm building the White House ballroom getting a secret no-bid contract. And, well, we have a highly volatile market right now.
The volatility is the point, really. I mean, when pieces this massive start moving on the board, the shockwaves travel all the way down the supply chain.
Yeah, they do.
You are either positioning your firm to catch the runoff, or you are about to get crushed by the resulting margin pressures.
Welcome to today's Scaling Legends Deep Dive. Our mission today is to take these industry-shaking headlines from the April 29th, 2026 briefing and, extract the specific structural actions you need to take right now to protect your business.
And capitalize on the massive procurement gaps being left behind.
Exactly. We are talking about billions of dollars in active project funding shuffling around as we speak. Okay, let's unpack this. We have to start at the top of the food chain with the Key Bridge situation.
We really do.
The Francis Scott Key Bridge rebuild is arguably the highest profile infrastructure job in the country right now. So to see Kiewit get off-ramped from a project of this magnitude mid-stride, that isn't just a minor administrative hiccup.
No, not at all.
It is like a star quarterback getting benched right before the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
How does a project of this magnitude even transition to a new prime? Because the risk allocation, the teaming agreements, the insurance wraps, they are all entirely hardwired into the prime contractor.
What's fascinating here is how a transition of this scale completely fractures the existing design-build ecosystem.
Right.
When a prime like Kiewit departs, the new entity stepping in is not simply going to adopt the existing subcontracting pipeline, no questions asked.
They want their own people.
Exactly. They are going to bring in their own preferred risk pools, or they will demand aggressive renegotiations of the sub-tier terms to match their specific surety parameters.
That makes sense.
And for a project this complex, spanning critical navigable waterways with immense public scrutiny, the procurement door has essentially been blown wide open again.
Wow.
In fact, Smart Business Automator's market intelligence report shows the Key Bridge rebuild is officially back in active procurement.
Wait, officially back?
Officially. So for next tier heavy civil contractors who might have been locked out of the initial teaming agreements, this creates a sudden, massive second chance to penetrate the project.
That is a colossal pivot.
Yeah.
But it also highlights how these mega projects kind of dictate the regional labor and material market.
Oh, absolutely.
And speaking of dictating markets, the Gateway Development Commission finally awarded the $1.29 billion final tunnel boring contract for the Hudson River Tunnel.
Finally, that was a long time coming.
Yeah, and they are signaling that the actual tunnel boring machine work is going to start within 18 months.
Which means the clock is ticking for the specialty subcontracting space.
Right, because 18 months until the boring machine starts spinning means the procurement window for the support systems is open right now.
Exactly. You do not just bore a hole under a river, you have to engineer it for survivability. That necessitates massive, immediate bidding opportunities for tunnel lining fabrication, high-capacity ventilation systems, complex electrical routing, communications infrastructure, and specialized fire suppression systems.
So the boring contractor is really just the tip of the spear.
Just the tip. The real sub-pipeline is everything that comes behind it.
And while the underground money is flowing in New York, the surface infrastructure money is hitting the ground hard too. Like FlatironDragados, the U.S. subsidiary of Spain's ACS and Acciona, just turned dirt on a $4.6 billion highway project.
And the critical detail there is the project delivery method.
Right. It is a public-private partnership, but specifically a design, build, finance, operate, maintain structure, right. A DBFOM.
Yes, a DBFOM. And that entirely rewrites how a subcontractor approaches the bid.
How so?
Well, it forces a shift from lowest first cost to life cycle durability.
Okay.
In traditional bid-build highway job, the prime wants the cheapest civil and paving subs to, hit the margin, hand over the keys, and walk away.
Just get done cheap.
Right. But in a DBFOM, the consortium is financially on the hook to operate and maintain that asset long after the asphalt cools.
Oh, wow.
If they use substandard materials, it eats directly into their operating profit for the next 30 years.
Because they have to pay to fix it.
Exactly. Therefore, their procurement priorities shift toward contractors specializing in intelligent transportation systems, like the sensor networks, the automated tolling tech, the structural health monitors.
The stuff that actually makes the highway smart and generates the revenue required to satisfy the private financing.
You nailed it.
But, securing one of these mega contracts is only half the battle. Surviving it is where the real threat lies.
Yeah, the execution phase is brutal right now.
When a heavy civil firm overextends, or when the margin arithmetic collapses under the weight of these massive complex jobs, the fallout is devastating for everyone downstream.
It's a domino effect.
Which brings us to the financial squeeze we are seeing right now. Heavy civil contractor Southland Holdings just reported a massive loss, and the Sureties are having to step in.
And when the surety steps in to take over a heavy civil contract of this scale, they aren't looking to do favors.
No.
They are looking to mitigate their own bleeding, which means prime subcontractor relationships immediately turn adversarial.
Subcontractor schedules get frozen, right?
Frozen schedules, delayed payments, and you are thrown into a maze of claims processing just to recover your costs.
So what is the survival tactic for subs in that environment?
Flawless documentation and immediate LIN filing. You simply cannot rely on a handshake when the bonding company takes over the ledger.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And this isn't an isolated incident. The margin compression driving these losses is systemic.
It certainly is. And actually, Smart Business Automator's market intelligence report is currently tracking 4 mid-cap heavy civil contractors under active surety pressure in the second quarter of 2026 alone.
4 of them.
Yeah, this is a massive tightening of the market. And when financial pressure hits the prime contractors, the behavioral changes that follow usually involve cutting corners on labor.
Which triggers an entirely different kind of regulatory squeeze.
Oh, yeah. The Department of Labor and Industry in Minnesota just forced a $1.28 million wage recovery from construction firms.
The largest in their history, right?
The largest wage recovery in the history of the department. And it is a direct result of state and federal regulators recognizing that labor misclassification is fundamentally warping the market.
They are cracking down hard.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the competitive impact of this gap is staggering. We are talking about the systemic issue of treating workers as independent 1099 contractors when they legally should be W-2 employees.
Right, and some people treat that like a paperwork issue.
But it isn't an administrative error. In a hard bid environment, it is literally like using performance-enhancing drugs in a bidding war.
That is a great way to put it.
When you break down the math, a firm that misclassifies workers is skipping FICA, workers' compensation premiums, unemployment insurance, and overtime requirements.
It creates a massive hidden gap.
A hidden 30% labor cost gap. If I am playing by the rules, paying full burden, and the guy bidding against me is illegally running his whole crew as 1099s to shave 30% off his labor costs, he unfairly handicaps every legitimate firm in the room.
He does.
He wins the job purely because he bypassed the structural economics of the industry.
And that 30% margin advantage is an illusion built on an unsustainable risk profile.
Exactly.
It is precisely why regulatory bodies are weaponizing their audits. State DLs understand that if a prime contractor's margins are reliant on the fragile foundation of misclassified labor, well, one comprehensive audit can bankrupt the project.
Which is terrifying to the sureties we just talked about.
It is a cascading risk factor. We are also seeing the reputational enforcement mechanisms kick in.
Like the Dirty Dozen list.
Yeah. Recently, a prominent water and sewer contractor, along with a major home builder, landed on the National Council for Occupational Safety and Health's Dirty Dozen Worst Employer list. And landing on a major watchdog list like that essentially guarantees enhanced scrutiny from federal inspectors on every single job site you operate.
And speaking of federal scrutiny, we are seeing procurement transparency taking center stage at the highest levels right now.
We really are.
The New York Times just broke a story regarding the firm currently building the White House ballroom for the Trump administration.
Right.
According to the report, this firm received a secret no-bid contract for a separate nearby federal job.
And looking at that purely from a procurement mechanics standpoint, bypassing the standard competitive bidding process on a federal level is an extreme deviation from statutory guidelines.
Right, because the federal contracting system is rigidly designed around open market competition.
Yeah.
To ensure taxpayer value and prevent preferential treatment.
Exactly. Whenever a non-transparent no-bid mechanism is utilized, it triggers automatic structural red flags within the oversight committees.
It is a stark reminder that regardless of the administration or the individuals involved, the mechanics of how taxpayer dollars are awarded for construction are heavily regulated.
Always.
Bypassing those mechanisms almost guarantees an inspector general review to audit the justification for skipping the open market.
Yep. It proves that procurement transparency is always under a microscope, and margin pressure does not excuse bypassing the process.
But that margin pressure is the core problem, isn't it?
It is the root of all of this.
I mean, if labor is becoming incredibly expensive, if properly classifying W-2 employees is strictly regulated, and if mismanaging your workforce triggers devastating audits and surety takeovers, how does a commercial contractor actually survive and execute these billion-dollar mega projects profitably?
Well, they have to innovate their way out of the bottleneck.
We hear about this constantly. Warp News just ran a massive profile on a tech builder claiming to solve construction's so-called 100-year productivity problem.
The premise there is that while manufacturing has skyrocketed in efficiency, construction still relies on highly bespoke, fragmented methods.
So the industry response is heavy machinery and new technology. Like Liebherr just launched their new 195 HCLH urban crane.
Yeah.
KCE dropped the CX70E zero tail swing excavator. Verkbrow has these new extreme duty buckets for wheel loaders. But I have to ask, is this just an industry-wide case of shiny object syndrome?
What do you mean?
Are contractors just buying expensive toys to feel innovative? Or are these zero tail swing machines actually solving the dense infrastructure economics we talked about earlier with the Hudson Tunnel?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the economics of these machines are strictly rooted in spatial necessity.
Okay, unpack that for me.
Look at the Liebherr 195 HCLH urban crane. When you are staging a mega project in a dense urban, like the staging areas for the Hudson River Tunnel, you do not have the luxury of sweeping a massive traditional job over active city streets and neighboring skyscraper.
Right, you'd be hitting buildings.
You face catastrophic liability and immediate permitting shutdowns if you violate that airspace.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So you need high-capacity lifting engineered into an incredibly confined vertical footprint. That urban crane isn't a luxury. It is the spatial requirement for the bid.
Wow.
It puts legacy crane manufacturers on high alert because the market for cramped, high-density mega projects is becoming the dominant sector.
And that same spatial constraint dictates the earth-moving equipment too, right?
Absolutely.
Because in highway expansions or tunnel work, if the back of your traditional excavator swings out into an active lane of traffic, the liability profile makes the job uninsurable.
A single accident shuts down the whole site.
Right. So the KCE zero-tail swing excavator keeps the counterweight entirely within the width of the tracks. It delivers heavy-duty power without the lethal footprint.
Exactly. And with the Verkbrow extreme duty buckets, when you are doing heavy aggregate and demolition work on those P3 highway jobs, equipment downtime from a failed bucket eats directly into the operational timeline you are financing.
So you aren't buying a shiny object. You are buying schedule certainty.
Precisely. But swapping out a traditional excavator for a zero-tail swing model only solves your spatial footprint.
Right. What else is there?
You still have to solve your carbon footprint, because these mega project bids are now structurally mandating embodied carbon maximums.
Oh, the environmental requirements.
Yeah, you cannot simply pour traditional concrete and expect to win a federal or state infrastructure job today.
Which is driving the massive push in material science. AZABuild just reported on a new circular framework that enables sustainable, waste-based concrete design.
That is a huge deal.
Yeah, concrete production is responsible for a massive percentage of global carbon emissions. By engineering waste materials into the mix, contractors are aggressively lowering the embodied carbon of the structure.
It is no longer just a green PR initiative.
No, it is a structural necessity to qualify for the bid.
The entire industry is being forced to engineer its way out of a corner. And these exact same pressures, the labor crunches, the urban density demands, the supply chain shocks, They're forcing a radical evolution on the global stage as well.
Yeah, everyone is trying to solve the exact same puzzle, but they're deploying very different mechanisms to do it.
The global ripple effects are absolutely fascinating.
Let's look at the UK right now. Planning Building Construction today is reporting that UK construction productivity is facing absolute paralysis.
Paralysis, that's a strong word.
Well, a significant driver of this is macroeconomic uncertainty stemming from the conflict in the Middle East, which is sending massive shockwaves through their material supply chains and stalling capital deployment.
Yeah, and I read a parallel report from Australia noting that their home building costs are feeling like the COVID-era spikes, purely because of those same supply shocks.
The material shock is severe, but the labor response in the UK is what demands our attention.
Oh, the rig workers.
Yes. According to Splash 24/7, the UK is exploring ways to transition their North Sea oil and gas workforce directly into the terrestrial construction sector.
That is brilliant.
They're looking at a massive pool of highly skilled rig workers who know how to build complex, heavy structures in the harshest, most safety-critical environments on Earth.
And they are building a mechanism to pivot that specialized skill set to solve their infrastructure labor crunch.
It is an incredible strategy, taking an existing adjacent industrial labor pool and systematically upskilling them to bypass the traditional construction workforce shortage.
And we are seeing that upskilling strategy pay off in North America as well.
Really? Where?
Western Canada is pushing aggressive upskilling programs to address their heavy civil labor shortfalls right now.
Ah, okay.
And the market is rewarding the firms that figure this out. Canada's bird construction is seeing a major rally on the Toronto Stock Exchange, the TSX, specifically because they are signaling operational stability in an unstable labor market.
But where upskilling an adjacent workforce isn't fast enough, the alternative is changing the fundamental environment where we build.
You are talking about modular.
Yeah. Look at the data coming out of Australia. Their modular construction market is now projected to hit $17.1 billion by 2034.
Billion.
Billion with a B. The mechanism is simple. If you cannot find the skilled labor to build a structure in the rain on a muddy, unpredictable site, you move the process indoors.
You build the components in a climate-controlled factory with precision robotics.
And you assemble it on site with a fraction of the traditional workforce.
The entire world is trying to engineer their way out of the same structural labor shortage that just cost those firms in Minnesota over $1 million in wage recoveries.
Exactly. So what does this all mean? We have covered a massive amount of ground today, from the volatility of prime contractor replacements to the spatial economics of zero-tail swing excavators and the global pivot to modular fabrication.
It is a lot to digest.
Let's distill this briefing down to the direct structural action items you need to execute right now. Number one, if you are a heavy civil contractor, audit your active prime relationships. If Kiewit can get off-ramp from the Key Bridge, the board is resetting. Get your firm registered and positioned for the new procurement phase on that project immediately.
Be ready to move.
Number two, actively pursue the specialty subwork opening up on the Gateway Hudson Tunnel. The 18-month countdown for support systems has started. Simultaneously, get your intelligent transportation systems and life cycle durability bids into the pipeline for the FlatironDragados P3 highway project.
You have to start bidding those now.
Number three, this is an absolute non-negotiable liability check. Check audit your worker classifications immediately on all your active subs. The Minnesota crackdown proves that the 1099 versus W-2 gap is a massive target for state auditors.
Do not ignore that one.
Number four, closely monitor the surety market. If your heavy civil primes are aggressively delaying payments this month, assume they are under Southland-style surety pressure and secure your leak rights today to avoid getting trapped in claims processing.
Protect your cash flow.
And number five, if you have equipment needs for upcoming dense urban projects, lock in your pricing right now as these new Liebherr and KCE spatial footprint refreshes hit the market before supply chain shocks drive the prices back up.
Navigating that list of structural shifts is exactly what separates the firms that scale from the firms that stall.
It really is.
But staying on top of it doesn't have to consume your day. Smart Business Automator's market intelligence report pulls all of this precise, actionable intel for contractors every single morning. So you can actually spend your time executing your projects instead of manually parsing through regulatory updates and procurement boards.
That is huge.
And as we wrap up today's analysis, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. We are seeing the structural mandate of sustainable waste-based concrete to solve the carbon problem.
Right.
We're seeing the deployment of extreme-duty urban equipment designed for millimeter precision to solve the spatial problem. And we are seeing a global pivot toward billions in modular fabrication to solve the labor problem.
It is all connected.
It is. With all of these forces converging, will the next generation of mega projects look more like highly controlled automated manufacturing plants than the chaotic traditional job sites we all grew up with?
Wow. It is a wild thought, but honestly, with the way the risk allocation dominoes are falling, I think that controlled manufacturing reality is closer than we realize. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. If you know a contractor who is dealing with heavy civil surety pressures or trying to land infrastructure subcontracts right now, send them this episode. It could help them avoid a costly labor misclassification audit or get them ahead on the Gateway Tunnel pipeline. Hit follow on whatever app you're listening on so you don't miss tomorrow's intel. And be sure to visit smartbusinessautomating.com.